Thank you. What a treat. Wow, what a treat for me. Man, just being with you guys means I'm going to be ready for next week back in Washington. Wow, you guys are so uplifting. And how about Michelle Malkin? Don't you just love her? And if you knew how good she was on the keyboard, you would be astounded. She is so talented. She's amazing and can sing. But also, I've got my own contested race. Those of us that wanted a new speaker were told, you know, you guys are going to have primaries. And we do. And my election is on March 1st for my primary. But when Mark Levin says, would you come speak? Are you kidding? You betcha, I'll be there. So I'm thrilled to be here with such good friends. And I want to say a word about Justice Antonin Scalia. I love the guy. I know you did too, if you knew him at all. And there's a handful of things since I've been in Washington that are so special to me. And one was when I would get to have lunch or breakfast with Antonin Scalia. He loved jokes and stories like I did. So as a tribute to that man's sense of humor, we'd go back and forth. I'm going to tell one of them. He said, well, you know, I got that. There was one, probably was down in Texas back when they were hanging people for capital punishment. He said, you know, this guy had done it all, murdered, pillaged, he robbed, he was horrible. And the Saturday morning they had the big hanging. The sheriff brought him up to the gallows. 3,000 people or so gathered. And the sheriff said, now, we have a tradition in our town. We'll let the defendant say a few words to the crowd before we hang you. Would you like to do that? He said, no. He said, sheriff said, I don't think you understand. You're about to meet your judge, your maker. Wouldn't you like to apologize? You got some victims' families out here. Wouldn't you like to say something? He said, no, not really. Somebody in the crowd yelled, will the gentleman yield? And the guy looked at the sheriff and said, I don't know what that means. And the sheriff said, well, that was our congressman here, and that's Congress talk, for he wants you to give him his time, your time to speak to the crowd. He said, could I do that? The sheriff said, well, I guess. Do you want to? He says, I sure do, on one condition. He said, what's that? He said, you go ahead and hang me first. That was Justice Scalia. I love that man. Well, we are known by our friends. We're known by our enemies. And if you love John Boehner as Speaker of the House, no, I mean, we all have people that like us and dislike us. We're known by our friends and our enemies. But if you like John Boehner, thought he did a good job, look at the people who nominated, endorsed, supported, voted for, and then look who they endorsed in the presidential election. Then on the other hand, if you love those who demanded a new speaker so we would start keeping our word, somebody that would stand up against the odds, against the establishment, against the media, call it like it was. If you like people that did that kind of thing, like my friends, say, Tim Hulskamp from Kansas, or Steve King, who had to rush home tonight. Our prayers are with Steve in Maryland. He got word Maryland was in the hospital, been taken, so rushed back. And our thoughts and prayers are with Maryland tonight and Steve. But also a guy that I've learned to love, and if you don't, you got to know Jeff Duncan. Don't you love him? Yeah. People like Dave Bratt and Mark Meadows, Randy Weber, Jim Bridenstine. Hey, all of those have something in common. We stood up and demanded a new speaker, and we've all endorsed the same guy for president. So I'm just, and I want to tell you, let me tell you, when the Gang of Eight bill was being pushed, I'm telling you, we were devastated. We were so thrilled. We had a new senator from Florida. We were so thrilled. This meant we were going to stop amnesty. McCain's bill wouldn't go anywhere no matter what McCain and Schumer did. And lo and behold, it got a really wonderful guy as the face of the bill, and it made it almost unstoppable. We were meeting at least once a week, usually over at Ted Cruz's office. There is not one thing that Ted Cruz did regarding the Gang of Eight bill or amnesty that was ever inconsistent with our plans and our strategy to stop that bill. That's the way it is. Now, some claim that this nation, to get back on track, to have a new day, to have a new awakening here, we don't need a leader who will humble himself and seek God's face and ask forgiveness and lead us in seeking God. We don't need that. What we need is not someone who will speak softly and carry a big stick. Some say what we need is somebody who will speak loud, nasty, and threatening, and then God will bless America. Well, I'm still struggling with that one a little bit. Some of us believe what 2 Chronicles 7:14 says. If my people who are called by my name, and it doesn't mean everybody in America, everybody's got freedom, but if the people that are called by God's name will humble themselves, right? If we will pray and seek God's face and turn from their wicked ways, then He will hear their prayers and He will heal our land. And I want to take you back very quickly and wrap it up. We know what Ben Franklin said in 1787. He was overweight, he was 80 years old, had trouble getting up and down, had gout, arthritis. And we know what he said because he was asked for a copy of the speech immediately after he wrote it out in his own handwriting. And if you attend schools and if you get any history under Common Core, they'll tell you Ben Franklin was a deist. His own words say not so. In part, he said, I have lived, sir, a long time, and the longer I live, the more convincing proofs I see of this truth. God governs in the affairs of men. And if a sparrow cannot fall to the ground without his notice, is it possible an empire could rise without his aid? We've been assured, sir, in the sacred writing, that unless the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. He said, I firmly believe that. I also firmly believe without His concurring aid, we shall succeed in our political building no better than the builders of Babel. We'll be divided by our little local partial interests, and we'll be confounded. We will become a byword down through the ages. Look, this country needs a new day. We need to get back on track. We need to stop luring people away from their God-given potential by luring with little benefits into a rut they can't get out of until they're dependent on the government. We need a new day. And I know you will stand with Lincoln in his words, in essence, when he said here, it is rather for us to be hereby resolved that the great task remaining before us, that we highly resolve here and now, folks, that our patriotic forefathers and mothers who fought, who worked, who sweat, who bled, who died to assure us the greatest nation in history will not have done so in vain. We must highly resolve that this nation, under God, will have a new birth of freedom, that this government of the people, by the people, and for the people will not perish from the earth. God will bless us if we follow the rules. Thank you so very much. God bless you all.